Christian Bale. He starved himself down to 120 pounds. 1 apple, 1 cup of coffee, sometimes a can of tuna. That was Christian Bale's entire daily diet while preparing for The Machinist. The transformation was horrifying. His ribs looked like they could snap through his skin. His spine curved like a bent hanger under the weight loss. His face collapsed into a hollow mask, eyes sunken, cheekbones like blades. Crew members admitted it was disturbing to look at him. Bale himself said he could barely climb a flight of stairs without nearly passing out. For audiences, it was commitment. For Bale, it was torment. Friends who stopped by his apartment said it felt like visiting someone who was sick. He moved slow, careful, like every step cost him energy. Bale kept a little notebook to track every bite of food. If he went over by even a few calories, he'd punish himself by eating less the next day. At night, he'd lie awake, stomach growling so loud it kept him from sleeping, telling himself this pain would show on camera. He refused help, even when people offered to carry things for him, because he wanted to feel every bit of the struggle. And then came the whiplash. Just 6 months later, he reversed everything, ballooning up to 220 pounds of muscle for Batman Begins. Trainers stuffed him with nearly 5,000 calories a day, pizza, ice cream, protein shakes, anything to pile on weight. Doctors warned that the violent swing, losing 60 pounds, then gaining 100 back, could have triggered heart failure. The studio worried he might hurt himself and begged him to slow down. Bale would not listen. He spent long hours in the gym, lifting until his arms shook, forcing down meals even when he felt sick. But Bale kept going. He dropped weight again for The Fighter, bulked up for American Hustle, packed on dangerous fat for Vice. Over and over, he broke his body down and rebuilt it on impossible deadlines. Each transformation left deeper scars. Brad Pitt. For decades, he's been the image of effortless cool, but some of his most iconic roles came at a brutal cost. Take Fight Club. To become Tyler Durden, Pitt starved his body down to single-digit body fat. His veins bulged, his abs carved into stone, his frame stripped to nothing but muscle and bone. The look became legendary. But here's the catch. It wasn't sustainable. Pitt admitted the training left him constantly dehydrated, drained, and injured. To get there, he followed a schedule that barely allowed him to breathe. Early mornings started with punishing cardio sessions, followed by hours of weight training that left his hands trembling. Meals were timed down to the minute plain chicken, steamed vegetables, endless gallons of water. Pitt later said the hardest part wasn't the workouts, it was the loneliness. While friends went out for dinner, he stayed home, measuring portions and fighting cravings. Every mirror became a test of willpower, a reminder that one slip could undo weeks of pain. Then came Troy. To play Achilles, he bulked up with months of relentless workouts and a soldier's diet. He gained muscle, but his body cracked under the pressure. During filming, Pitt tore his Achilles tendon, an almost cruel twist of fate. Doctors called it the kind of injury that ends athletes' careers. The production stalled and Pitt limped through the pain long after the cameras stopped rolling. Recovery was slow and agonizing. Physical therapists worked on the tendon every day, stretching and icing while Pitt clenched his teeth. He pushed through scenes wearing hidden supports, determined not to let the injury show on screen. Between takes, he'd sit quietly, foot propped on a crate, knowing that one wrong move could tear it again. The irony wasn't lost on him, playing the greatest warrior of legend while barely able to walk. And then snatch. Pitt threw himself into Mickey, the bare-knuckle boxing gypsy. He trained with real fighters, sparred in rings, and took hits that left him bruised before filming even began. Off-screen, they left scars that never faded. Years later, Pitt confessed he could never return to that Fight Club body again because chasing it nearly broke him. Tom Hanks. He's one of Hollywood's most beloved actors, but some of his greatest performances left scars that never went away. For Philadelphia, Hanks lost more than 25 pounds to play a man ravaged by AIDS. He thinned down so severely that friends worried about his health. But that was nothing compared to what came next. For Castaway, Hanks needed to look like a man stranded on an island for years. To achieve it, he shed nearly 60 pounds. The transformation was brutal. His ribs looked like they could snap through his skin. His cheeks collapsed inward. His clothes hung off him like rags on a skeleton. The sturdy, all-American leading man suddenly looked fragile, brittle, and frighteningly real. The shoot itself made things even harder. Production paused for months so he could lose the weight, and during that break, he lived on strict rations, mostly fish, vegetables, and tiny portions of fruit. Hanks spent lonely afternoons hiking remote trails just to burn a few extra calories, carrying nothing but a bottle of water. He later said that every walk felt like a rehearsal for life on the island, a slow march where each step reminded him how far he had pushed his body. Even brushing his teeth left him lightheaded. Years later, he recalled moments on set when his vision blurred and he had to lean against a tree until the dizziness passed. Crew members quietly arranged chairs near the camera so he could rest between takes, but Hanks kept insisting on one more shot. He joked about coconuts in interviews, but in private, he admitted that every bite of food felt like a gamble too much sugar, and his body would crash too little and he'd faint. Hanks himself admitted the process was miserable. Weeks of near starvation left him lightheaded, drained, and running on fumes. On set, every movement felt like a chore. He once joked he never wanted to see another coconut again, but behind the joke was the truth. His body had paid a price it would never recover from. Philadelphia won him the Oscar. Castaway became a classic, but the damage didn't fade with the credits. Matthew McConaughey. For years, he was the rom-com golden boy, the laid-back charmer with the easy Texas drawl. But in 2013, everything changed. For Dallas Buyers Club, he didn't just play a man dying of AIDS, he put his own body on the line. He dropped nearly 50 pounds, from a healthy 185 down to around 135, and the way he did it was brutal. Fasting for long stretches, eating little more than egg whites, a sliver of fish, and a handful of vegetables, day after day. Friends said it was like watching a candle burn down. His clothes hung loose, his belt wrapping twice around his waist. McConaughey would joke to keep spirits up, but behind closed doors, he admitted the hunger never left. He'd chew ice just to feel something in his mouth. Every morning, he woke up weaker, but he refused to look in the mirror because he didn't want to see how far he'd gone. His wife kept a quiet eye on him, making sure he didn't faint while walking across the room. The result? He looked like a walking ghost. His cheekbones cut sharp shadows across his face. His clothes sagged like they belonged to someone else. Friends said they barely recognized him. And here's the scary part. His body began shutting down. Doctors warned him that weight loss this fast could wreck his heart and immune system permanently. McConaughey admitted he'd lie awake at night, feeling his pulse thump unevenly, wondering if he'd pushed too far. He later said that some nights he counted his heartbeat just to make sure it didn't skip. When it slowed, panic would set in. He'd sit up in bed, breathing deep, telling himself to hang on a little longer. On set, the crew whispered about his hollow eyes and the way his hands trembled when he held props. But every time the director called action, McConaughey snapped into character, hiding the fear behind a crooked grin. But when the cameras rolled, it worked. His performance was unforgettable, yet the recovery was slow, painful, and took more than a year. His strength, his appetite, his energy, everything had to be rebuilt from the ground up. Winning Best Actor was the high point of his career, but the damage was real, and it left a mark no award could erase. Hugh Jackman. For almost 2 decades, he was Wolverine, and to keep that role alive, Jackman put his body through some of the harshest routines Hollywood has ever seen. For every X-Men film, Jackman went into survival mode. Before shirtless scenes, he dehydrated himself, sometimes going without water for up to 36 hours, just to make his muscles explode on camera, his skin stretched tight, veins bulging under the surface. Behind the camera, he was dizzy, lightheaded, and barely able to stand. Doctors warned that repeated dehydration could damage his kidneys or trigger cardiac arrest, but Jackman kept doing it again and again. He described those pre-shoot days as a blur of dry mouth and pounding headaches. Even the smell of food drove him crazy, but he refused to drink a drop until the cameras captured the perfect shot. Crew members said he'd joke between takes, but his hands sometimes shook so badly he had to steady them on set pieces. Afterward, he'd finally sip water, feeling it rush through his body like fire. That first drink was both relief and punishment, a reminder of how close he'd pushed himself to the edge. Then came Les Miserables. To play Jean Valjean as a starving prisoner, Jackman lost weight fast. He shaved his head, grew a ragged beard, and lived on a diet that left him skeletal. His eyes sank into his skull, his lips cracked, and he stumbled into scenes looking like he'd been ripped from a real prison cell. Hen filming ended, he tried to celebrate with a normal meal only to find his stomach rejected it after weeks of starvation. And here's the thing, the punishment never left him. By the time he retired from Wolverine in Logan, Jackman confessed he couldn't physically handle it anymore. Years of starvation diets, dehydration, and relentless training had left him scarred. He admitted to constant fatigue, aching joints, and a body that simply wouldn't recover the way it used to. On screen, Jackman's transformations were extraordinary. Off-screen, they pushed him past his breaking point. Charlize Theron. When she signed on to play serial killer Aileen Wuornos in Monster, she knew she had to disappear into the role. But what she did to her body was shocking. Theron packed on over 30 pounds in just weeks by abandoning her diet completely. Burgers, donuts, chips, greasy food, day after day, until her body caved under the weight. The change was jarring. Her once toned frame turned sluggish, her skin broke out, her face looked puffy, her energy drained. She admitted even climbing stairs left her out of breath. And when filming ended, she learned the damage wasn't temporary. Her metabolism slowed so much, the weight refused to come off. It stuck for years, and her body fought her every step of the way. Theron later described those months as living inside a body she didn't recognize. She'd open her closet and see dresses that no longer fit, shoes that pinched because her feet had swollen from the sudden gain. Simple things like tying her hair or bending to pick something up felt heavier, slower. She told herself it was all for the character, but there were nights when she sat in silence, wondering how long it would take to feel like herself again. But unbelievably, she did it again. For Tully, she gained nearly 50 pounds to play a struggling mother. To keep the weight on, she forced herself to eat at all hours. Cold pasta at midnight, sugar-loaded snacks before bed. The toll was brutal. Depression set in. Her joints ached. She described feeling trapped inside a body that wasn't hers. Even after cameras stopped rolling, the craving stayed. Her stomach had stretched, her sleep was broken, and every attempt to return to normal eating brought waves of nausea. Trainers tried gentle routines, but her body refused to shed the extra pounds. Theron said it felt like her own system was fighting against her, clinging to the weight as if it belonged there. Each morning, she woke stiff and sore, a reminder that this wasn't just a role, it was a real physical battle she would carry long after the awards were handed out. The performances were unforgettable. Monster won her the Oscar. Tully earned critical acclaim, but the price was devastating. Theron admitted her health never fully bounced back, and she swore she would never attempt that kind of transformation again.